What is good, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the third album by R&B singer Jamie Foxx. Basically, this project is called Intuition, and it came out in the late fall of 2008. Now, this is definitely in my now this is definitely, I would say, a classic R&B album from the 2000s. It did a lot of things right, and it just overall had a pretty lengthy pitch. It lasted from like the summer of 2008 to about the late summer of 2009, so it was around for quite a while, and it just did a lot of things correctly in terms of R&B and contemporary R&B. Had a lot of staying power, a lot of hit singles, a lot of good flash and pizzazz about it. That just was pretty fun and bolsterous as far as I kind of have. Definitely like the concept of it. Had some good guests on here, some good overall flashiness. Just like the concept of this particular one. This one's kind of up there with some of the albums of late 2000s fare, like T-Pain's Turnt Sanga and Trey Songz is Ready and some of those type ones. Definitely one of the more highlighted ones to kind of talk about from R&B. And Jamie Foxx was just kind of a surprise kind of chameleon when he did this particular project, considering that he was doing acting throughout the 2000s with movies like Miami Vice and Collateral and some of those type movies, but he still managed to put out some good music and albums as far as that pitch kind of happened also. So it's a good kind of concept to kind of get that. It's definitely pretty like I was saying, classic R&B album here is definitely going to get a pretty rave score. Just like the overall affability and just overall this kind of concepts of just the thoroughness of this particular project. Definitely one of the soaring points. Between this album and then Drake's So Far Gone mixtape from early 2009, these were both two good bends to kind of have for some hit R&B music around the 2008 2009 time period. So there was definitely some good stuff. And then if you throw in Kanye West 808s and Heartbreak, there was just overall a lot of good moments for that sort of pitch. It's just some good stuff. So basically about this album, I'd have to say there were 4 singles, and all of them really did pretty well. I mean, it was kind of varied. I mean, the best overall song was Blame It on the Alcohol, which hit #2 on the Billboard 100, but there were some other singles that did get to the 4th single. It actually had a 5th single that was kind of here and there. It just kind of charted somewhat in like the hip hop and R&B type charts, but it had 4 or 5 particular type singles that did pretty well. Definitely, like I said, this album lasted for over a year. So it's just a good pitch. And this is also like another good pitch to kind of think about with this album is it's a pretty good winter R&B type album. Like some R&B albums are mostly kind of concerned with like summer, just like drink fest and dance clubs and that sort of rave type stuff. But this is actually a pretty station kind of R&B album for like the winter time, just a lot more graceful and kind of more finesse kind of like type fare as far as I can have. It's just in some sophistication, not necessarily bookstore type vibes, but just a lot more graceful and just kind of more this almost white collar kind of fashionable kind of tasteful kind of sense as far as I kind of went. This Kanye West on like his dark fantasy album from 2010 type vibes with like some of like the dream in there, just the gracefulness of like the dream from like his late 2000s fair, and then just folks like Jay Holiday and like other R&B singers like that. Can't really think of them. Like maybe a little bit of John Legend and a little bit of like there's another one I can't think of, but like Ryan Leslie and some of those type folks that had to say. So it's a good pitch to kind of get that, but I do like the concept of some good stuff. Yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about the singles here. So there's 5 of these. I'm going to talk about these. So basically the first single is Just Like Me, and this has T.I. on the feature. T.I. was doing pretty great in 2008, so this is a good pitch to kind of get. This is basically like a late summer haze of a song, I'd have to say. One of the few summer songs on this particular album, I'd have to suppose. It has a relative makeshift R&B type feel. It's a relative makeshift R&B regular day pizzazz that this song particularly kind of has, and it's just a good traverse malaise kind of hit. So I feel like this is definitely one for just like the malaise of 4 o'clock, 5 p.m., something like that in late August, September, some of that type pitch of just kind of like the standard just got done with work, class, some of that type of stuff. Just the affability of getting tasks done and responsibilities done as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just a good song to kind of hear on the drive home and things like that. Just within that pitch, pretty good makeshift type song to kind of get. Just definitely like the overall pitch behind it. Just really some it's R&B makeshift, I'd have to say. So it's a good pitch. Just kind of Jamie Foxx in a more kind of Jamie Foxx in a more commerce type pitch, but it's just a nice kind of not necessarily like the ferocity of summer, like typical songs like Bottoms Up by Trey Songz or something like that, or Usher's like Bottoms Up by Trey Songz or Usher's Yeah, or some of those type ones, or Bartender by T-Pain, some of those type pitches. But I'd have to say it's just a good pitch to kind of get this particular one because it's just some late summer haze. Great for September, I'd have to say. And then She Got Her Own is a real nice one. This is a pretty highlighted type song. Definitely like this one. This has Neo and Fabulous on there. She Got Her Own has Neo and Fabulous on there also. This is like a suave, kind of graceful R&B winter outing snazz of a song, I'd have to say. It's just some nightclub flair in like a more elegant fashion, I would definitely have to suppose. So this one's really sophisticated. This is the sort of stuff that Neo kind of was doing in 2008 with songs like Miss Independent and some of those type ones, I'd have to suppose. There's some other songs by Neo off of his Year of the Gentleman album that just worked pretty well within that pitch. But it's just good to kind of get. I mean, Fabulous definitely feels at home on this particular type song. It's a good kind of factor to get Fabulous on this particular song. Jamie Foxx and Neo do a great job on here. It's just an overall suave kind of one. So this is definitely a little bit more elegant one, just a little bit more ritzy, kind of flashy stepping out, just with a little bit more expensive, clothing and more snazziness, I'd have to suppose, for stepping out just within that particular sense. It's definitely a night out song, definitely for like a more pizzazzful and fashionable type place. Definitely something that Kanye West would have done in like the late 2000s, early 2010s, I'd have to suppose, something like that. It's kind of definitely kind of runway and just very fashion oriented, I'd have to say. Really graceful, like the concept of it. And then probably one of my more favorite songs off this particular album is the third single, Blame It on the Alcohol. This is a definite nice one. This is a pounding kind of night festivities gem, I'd have to say. It's just a great get crank song with Bay, I would definitely have to suppose. This is a dance bop and it's just a commercial smash, I'd have to say. This is a dance bop, definitely, and this is just a commercial kind of smash, I'd have to suppose. So I definitely like this one. This is the highest charting song off the album, I'd have to suppose. Real great song. This is definitely a great song to get blitzed with Bay, I'd have to suppose. Just a great song to get drunk with the ladies, as far as I can have. It's just a real nice, festive kind of one that just overall has a lot of engaging and exhilarating kind of energy. Definitely like the poundiness of this particular one. It was a really popular song back in the day, just one of the bigger hits in R&B out of the late 2000s, early 2010s, I'd have to suppose. It's a real nice hit that just really has some vivid appeal and continues to be a strong showing today, even. And continues to be a strong showing even today, I'd have to suppose. Just a real good highlight. Might be a little bit retro for these times as far as like this, it being kind of somewhat of a relic, but I'd have to, compared to some of the R&B of nowadays, it might be seen as somewhat of a relic, but it's just a vintage kind of stock classic R&B from 2000s. I would definitely have to suppose that this does a lot of damage, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. I Don't Need It was the fourth single, and this is kind of one. This is produced by Timbaland. This is kind of one that was kind of in that Timbaland type sound. It was kind of released to U.S. radio only, so it wasn't quite an international type song, but I still like the pitch of this particular one. It's just a pretty nice one. This one's just kind of like a social outing pizzazz of a song, I'd have to say. This song is loud and has good bravado about it. This song is loud and has good bravado about it, I'd have to say. It's just great for night commerce, definitely. It's just some city hopping kind of fun. So this is definitely one for like some sports games, going to basketball. This is just great for going to basketball, baseball, hockey games, stuff like that, football games, just in a more kind of commerce, just for evening times, just for stepping out and city hopping, some of that kind of city lights pizzazz as far as that kind of pitch kind of happens. This is definitely kind of a more pounding one. This is different from like the usual, the song is different from like the usual kind of Justin Timberlake type sound that Timbaland was kind of on in like 2006, 2008 and such. Just has a little bit more of like a bravado kind of sense. Definitely kind of one for more of just like a standard kind of real festive kind of outing, not just going to like a bar or something, but just kind of being out on the town and just really traversing throughout and having a great time and just kind of being loud and frenetic as far as I kind of have. It's just a real nice pitch of one to kind of get. Definitely like that one. Probably should have charted higher, but I kind of think that this one was almost like a promo single as far as I kind of went, but it's still a nice one. And then the fifth single was Digital Girl, and then the fifth single was Digital Girl. This is definitely a pretty highlighted one, I'd have to say. This is an enriching kind of ladies gem. Definitely, it's a stepping out kind of glitz of a song, I would definitely have to suppose. It's a glamorous and kind of graceful hit, I would definitely say. And it's just similar to She Got Her Own, and it's similar to the second single, She Got Her Own. So this is another kind of graceful type one, another glamorous type one that just has like that kind of social grace. This is another graceful type song. This is another glamorous type tune that has some of that kind of pizzazz of just like a kind of snazzy kind of sophistication that it kind of has about it. Just a real kind of nice internet savvy type song, I'd have to suppose. Really like the pitch of this particular one. It's just a very vivid type song that just works pretty damn well, I'd have to say. Really like the glitz on this particular one. Very hooky and melodic. Just a real kind of star-studded affair. Has The Dream on there and has Kanye West on there, so it definitely works in a pretty good pitch to kind of get that one. Definite, pretty nice, snappy kind of one to kind of have. This is one that probably should have charted as high as like Blame It. Both of these were kind of like the more bouncy type ones where I feel like She Got Her Own and Just Like Me were kind of the more kind of just like, I feel like She Got Her Own and Just Like Me were kind of the more makeshift pizzazz type ones just for standard Drew. But I feel like Blame It and Digital Girl were kind of the more like nightclub and bouncy type songs that just had a lot of dance affairs about. This one's just a definite highlight, I'd have to say. Digital Girl is definitely one of the best songs of the album, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. But so to talk about the rest of the songs on this particular album, there's 14 songs on this particular album, and out of those 14, I wound up recommending 12. So the only two songs I didn't recommend on this album would just be Rain Man and Love Brings Change. So to talk about those real quick, both of those were just kind of more homely type songs that just really, both Rain Man and Love Brings Change were just kind of more homely, kind of round the house type songs that just had a more traditional kind of sense of R&B, that just were kind of slower type songs that just didn't really have the correct pitch as far as I kind of went. I feel like these were decent songs if you're just kind of looking for more house cleaning type music and just kind of more just traditional kind of laid back, just a lot more lambent, just more relaxed and kind of lambent type affairs as far as I kind of have. So both these songs just didn't carry the pitch of the album as far as the context as to how I would have liked them. I mean, this is a pretty eviscerating album, especially for R&B. This contemporary type feels. I mean, I'm glad that Jamie Foxx is at least able to somewhat do these R&B type ballads, but they just didn't really have the affable kind of vibes. I mean, sometimes R&B artists can pull it off. I feel like Jamie Foxx pulls off some of these moments better on songs like Slow and Freakin' May and Overdose and some of those type moments and Weekend Lover, but some of these pitches were just kind of more of like kind of vintage kind of R&B that just didn't really have like as much of an affable charm about it. That's just kind of the concept. But this album's going to get a 10 out of 10. 12 songs out of 14 definitely is a 10 out of 10 territory. This is, like I was saying, a very pounding kind of hits like a ton of bricks R&B album that has a lot of contemporariness about it. So we'll go ahead and get to some of these. Slow is a pretty nice highlighted hit. This is like a late night kind of after hours R&B wind down fare, I'd have to say. It's another snazzy hit for residential R&B, I would definitely have to suppose, and it's just a hit album cut. So this is kind of one that's similar to Freakin' Me. Some of these type songs just really hit. Some of these songs like Slow and Freakin' Me and Weekend Lover just really hit quite well in terms of a residential sense and just kind of more kind of relative like high low tempo, kind of low mid tempo kind of bounce as far as I kind of have. It's just some really kind of rhythmic type ones for just being in a more ballad sense that just hits pretty heavily. So I like the concept of getting these particular ones. Another one like that, like I was saying, is Freakin' Me. This is like an effectual kind of hit R&B kind of bedroom boom type fare, I'd have to say. I definitely like the concept of that particular one. It's a 2000s R&B hit, definitely I would suppose, and it's just a great perfect execution of more homely R&B. So this one, compared to some of the other songs that I was talking about that I didn't recommend, is just an effectual kind of hit. This is the concept of like getting homely R&B that just needs to happen. This is how R&B should kind of be within that pitch. It just is rhythmic. It has like the perfect kind of tone. It just has the pitch and just overall in motion type feel that just makes it real effectual and just nails it as far as that kind of is concerned. And then it also has pretty good production fare on top of that. So it's just kind of the concept of getting some of these that just works pretty well. It just hits like a ton of bricks, like I was saying. Weekend Lover's another one that's like that. This is like a nice kind of snappy up tempo kind of hangout snaz of a song, I'd have to say. It's an R&B. This song has some R&B ballad like crooning, but it has like a rhythmic kind of pizzazz about it. So these are just some real highlighted ones. They have the hookiness, they have the catchiness, the great melodies, and stuff like that. This is just some great rhythmic R&B, and Jamie Foxx really did some of these particular type moments that just were really nice and effectively nailed, I'd have to suppose. These are just some real nice ones. The difference between this particular concept is Jamie Foxx proves that older R&B artists can do like more rhythmic R&B, not just within the sense of saying that they're out of fashion or a fish out of water or something like that. I would definitely have to suppose. This kind of the pitch. T-Pain kind of got a lot of flack for doing these type songs with like vocoder and stuff like that, but I would have to look after Jamie Foxx is pretty good at these particular type moments. So it's a good concept to kind of get some of these, just being able to say that, like, you know, when folks kind of complain about recent R&B, at least R&B past like 2003, 2004, 2002 or so, where there's kind of like the pitch of just like not being traditional kind of soul type music like Barry White and Mariah Carey and Mary J. Blige and some of those type folks. There's actually some good hitting type ones on here that have some good affectionateness. This great 2000s R&B type album, like I'd have to say. Number one is a pretty highlighted one, I would definitely suppose. This has Lil Wayne on there. This is like a pounding kind of ferocious. This song is like a pounding kind of ferocious night venue fun of a song, I'd have to say. It's just got a similar vibe and mood to Blame It on the Alcohol, definitely. Good pairing to kind of get with that particular one. This is like a good 1-2 punch for that sort of concept, and it's just a great song to get cranked to, I definitely feel like. So this has pretty good verse from Lil Wayne on here, good pitch to kind of have. Lil Wayne was in his prime in 2008, so he was nailing every song that he was on. It's just a good pitch to kind of get that concept. It's just a real nice, bouncy, kind of bass heavy, just thumping kind of nightclub type song that just hits pretty heavily. Definitely need to be more songs like this on this particular album, I'd have to say. I'm not complaining because I gave this album a 10 out of 10. Another highlighted hit on here is I Don't Know, and this is a pretty surprise highlight. I definitely like this one. This one's not a nightclub song, it's not a ballad either, but it just is a real blissful kind of mid-paced ruminating type song, I'd have to say. It's very melodic and sparkly, I would definitely have to suppose, and this works great for night venue haze, I definitely have to suppose, and it's just pretty glitzy. This is just a great song to kind of have. This one's kind of a lot more of like I was saying, this is a mid-paced kind of song. It's not really, I mean, this is kind of a nightclub song, but it's just kind of more in like the kickback of just kind of being in the booth, just kind of being at a booth with like some drinks in your system, something like that. Not a song you're really dancing to as much, but just kind of being at a venue and just kind of marinating a bit, just kind of kick back some of that type tone as far as that kind of happens. Just kind of more in the grace of just kind of being in the ambience of it, not so much in the festive dance craze of, not so much in like the festive dance pace of songs like Digital Girl and Blame It and Number One and some of those type ones, but definitely being in some outing for it's just a good pitch to kind of have. It's just kind of a decent, it's a rock solid ruminating type song. Definitely one of the better songs on the album, I'd have to say. Just really melodic, definitely. Overdose is a pretty good highlight. This is like a slower, more traditional R&B ballad type song, I'd have to say. It's just the wintry brush and frosty commerce vibe that this song particularly kind of has, and it's just good for some winter makeshift. So this is another good one to pair up with like She Got Her Own and some of those type songs. There's another wintry type song on here I'd have to suppose this may thinking about. I think it's Why, but there's just some good wintry type songs to have on this particular album, just with that kind of frosty vibe, just with that frosty vibe that this album kind of particularly kind of has. Just a good pitch to kind of get that. But it's just kind of the concept that this is kind of more traditional R&B. This is that 90s R&B that I was talking about, but it's pulled off well. This song is pulled off better than some of the songs towards the end, I'd have to say, but it's just a good concept. It's just a good concept to kind of get. This would be more for like adult contemporary type charts as far as that kind of pitch kind of happens, but it's just a more kind of circa R&B type song for like 1996, 1998, something like that. I'd have to suppose a good, nice one with a nice piano type beat on there. Why is a pretty good highlight. This is like an R&B kickback of a residential song, I'd have to say. It's just more formal than the song Slow, but it's more rosy than the song Just Like Me, I would definitely have to suppose. So it's kind of in between those concepts where it's not quite as much of like a snappy song, but it's also not quite as much of like a slow ballad type song either. It's just kind of, it's not really makeshift as much. It's kind of an in-between type song, I'd have to say, and it's just good for some winter day kind of commerce. So it's definitely a commerce song. It's similar to Just Like Me. It's just kind of a more winter variation of that particular pitch. It's just a little bit more rosy, kind of more sensual, a little bit more amorous than some of those particular songs that were just kind of more frenetic and more feisty as far as that kind of pitch kind of happens. But it's not quite as formal as like Slow, or just more, I mean, it's just kind of an in-between pitch where it's sensual, but it's not as full-blown sensual as songs like Freakin' Me and Slow are, and Weekend Lover and some of those type ones. It's kind of in-between type moment, just kind of yellow light kind of zone, I'd have to say, as far as that pitch kind of happens. So it's a good concept about it. But so that's the basic album, I'd have to say. So once again, me recommending 12 songs out of 14 on this particular album. I'm gonna go ahead and give this album like a 10 out of 10. That's a good pitch to kind of get. Just a lot of things right that this particular did. Just a lot of flashy kind of commercial contemporary R&B. Just hit the nail on the head on all cylinders. Just had some great singles, great execution. Just did a lot of things right, and that leads me to the social score, which also gets the 10 out of 10 just because the affability behind it. Had some nightclub songs, some dance songs, some stuff like that, some sensual songs, just some good kind of more homely type songs, just homely ballads, and just more round the house hangout type fare that was pulled off pretty well. Some wintry kind of songs, some makeshift songs. Just did a lot of things just within those pitches just to be able to do it. It's a real kind of robust kind of R&B album that just lasts throughout the seasons and just has a good pitch to kind of have to just be in your tape deck for a while, in your home for a while, as far as that kind of happens. It's a real good rhythmic album. In terms of the future, Jamie Foxx has not dropped an album since 2015. It's not like he oftenly kind of does it. I mean, he's had some health problems recently, so I know he's kind of taking a break from things, but I would have to say he has dropped a few more albums. I'm definitely going to get to some more of these, I'd have to suppose, but we just have to look after. This is definitely like a classic R&B album, definitely one of Jamie Foxx's best, I'd have to say. So I would highly recommend this in terms of like the R&B sense, and just go out and fuck with it. I would say go out and fuck with it and just have some blistering kind of times.